Yeah, you want to know how to install rocker panels on your Ford Taurus or Mercury Sable? Well, keep watching. In this first part here, we're going to start removing the rusty panel. And in future videos, it's going to be a multi-part series. We're going to work on putting the new panels in.
Alrighty, here we are. What a mess. A little bit of rust every place, but this is the project I've got myself into, and just a general overview before we get going. I do have a brand new rocker panel to install, the complete rocker panel, not just the partial replacement, and as you see, it certainly looks like it's going to be a necessity, and there's going to be a few surprises here coming up. This is a good video to overview if you have one of these and you're thinking of doing the rocker panel repair, exactly what you are getting into. And there's some more looking up at the rust. Yeah, there's one plus on this. I've gotten into rusty messes throughout the years many times, but it's always been on my own vehicle. This isn't my vehicle, so at least I didn't have to buy the rocker panel. I had quoted a price to my cousins. There, it's her husband's car. I think I might have put my foot in my mouth, but anyhow, at least again, it's not my mess, it's someone else's mess. Yet till it's done, I guess it is sort of my mess. Like I say, I get to spend time with rust. That's something, living in the Northeast, this is what you get after the years, and particularly this is actually a Mercury Sable, but Taurus Sable, all the same car, they do seem to be a problem. That plastic covering seems to hold all sorts of moisture, salt, mud in. Well, actually, I think mud packs in, and then you throw the salt in that, and there you can see I have the interior out, and there is the new complete rocker panel. And it seems like a nice made part, and you can check it out. It's supposed to, I do believe it's 18 gauge metal. It seems to be decently constructed. There is, again, slip-on rocker panels for these cars, but this one I'm convinced, and you saw that it was beyond the slip-on rocker panels, because the slip-on you wouldn't have to take the doors and such off the fender as I did. But again, yeah, we're past that, and we're going to carry it over here and get some marks here where to cut out the old rusty metal. Yeah, the big key on the slip-on rocker panel, it don't go up into the doorpost of the car. It only does the bottom probably about 3 inches, when I think this is, well, we're going to go farther into this. It looks like the bottom about 6-8 inches of this car is pretty much toast. I mean, there's a few places, and there you can see it's lining up where those fender bolts are. So before we start marking and cutting, yes, you want to be cautious before you start cutting metal out that you don't cut too much, or you'll have a problem. But I'm convinced this is good. And then we're going to take a marker here and mark around the A-post on the car to begin with. Yeah, it's another actually good sign, good quality made part, is the holes are at the proper place for, like again where those fenders and that bolt. It does seem like all the proper factory holes are stamped in it, including the holes to put that plastic molding back on the bottom. You can see them, and here's a hole right in the center that lines up with the B-pillar, and I'm just looking again, it's all lining up with what's left of the original before we mark where we're going to cut here eventually. And furthermore, I bought these rocker panels on carparts.com, and it was a pair of them. That one with tax and shipping and all, it was around $330. Not a bad deal. Again, they seem to be made. It is cheaper than another car in a sense, especially if you do the work yourself or you have someone that'll work reasonable. But on the other hand, if you can't do the work yourself or have a reasonably priced shop, an actual body shop, probably get into more than what the car's worth to repair it. Okay, now we're here back at the C-pillar, and you can see we're going to mark this where to cut. And there's something on this, but it's going to be a problem further in the future. This dog leg on this car, somebody's already did repair and just took and put some body filler in it. And like I say, that's going to be something going to have to definitely, that's not part of the panel. There is a replacement dog leg for the car. I perhaps might order one, or I might just fabricate a piece. But yeah, there's definitely, this is already, I can tell it's not the original metal part of the dog leg. It has just body filler in it, and there we got it all. Usually the Sharpie's magic markers mark pretty good, but I'll admit I'm was done. When I started, I should have took and wiped all the dust and that off the car, but I didn't, and it was difficult to mark. And that's in the color of the car, but I think we got marks we can see, and we've got to take and pull the new panel back off, and there's, yep, you can see the mark good enough. And now I'm going to measure about an inch down, because we don't want to cut where exactly it sits. We want to be sure we have enough metal, and we're going to take and measure it, and like I say, the whole way around at the top. Yeah, I find doing this the little straight, little 6-inch ruler here the best, and then after we got our marks about an inch down, just take and draw a straight line, connect the dots, so to speak. And there, I think part of my problem too, my Sharpie's wearing out. And then here we're going to measure an inch down. Again, just be sure you give it enough extra. Don't cut yourself short, because you can always trim more later. But if you cut too much, well, you can't put it back. Real handy. Well, you'll be making extra work. And there, that's marked. And now we're back here to the B pillar, doing the same thing. Yeah, I've been tampering around with fixing rusty cars since before I was even old enough to drive. I had a car I run in the field, and I messed around with. That was just no metal or nothing, just body filler and filling the holes in with newspaper and that. And then I, through the years, moved up to pop rivets, and then finally, in the late 90s, I had my first MIG welder. And again, it takes years of doing it and practice to get it, but hopefully this video, if you're thinking of tackling a project, even if you don't have a Taurus or Sable, it'll give you some tips on what to do and what not to do, and get you going on the right path. And there we another mark. Again, this marker, it's time for another one, and a color of this car. But we got it. It's slowly, I can see it. As long as I can say it good enough, you can take it and cut it. And back around to the back side of the B pillar. Yeah, speaking of mistakes, again, I should have wiped this dirt off this. I didn't really actually pay attention how dirty it was. Apparently the cousin's husband, he travels on dirt roads. I know usually my cars, I wipe these door jambs and that out. I don't ever do any real dirt road driving, but yeah, that marked better that time. And now we're back around here to the C pillar. And you can see what I'm really saying on that dog leg. You can see that's rusty, and it's already been, again, back down to just throwing some body filler in the hole. The real simple repair. But yeah, we'll take care of it. It'll all fall into place as it goes along, and get our mark up around into the door opening and back around. Here I'm just sort of around these curves, just sort of eyeing it up, and yep, that is going to be definitely some extra work there. But yeah, we'll worry about that. We're going to cut it where the panel's set, but yeah, more of this is going to need cut out and replaced farther into this. Like I say, this will be a couple videos till this is done, but you want to watch them all there. You can pick up all sorts of tips and tricks. And whether if you want to again get into this or get another car, it's again all sorts of options. Now we're going to start cutting these. I'm using my handy dandy 3-inch electric cutoff tool I got at Harbor Freight. I have this tool better than the Airman. I do have an air cutoff tool, the same style, but this works quicker and better. And like I say, just follow the line, and round and around we go. Sparks flying. Be sure you wear the eye protection. I have a full face shield on when I'm doing this. When you're cutting this, you want to just cut through the first layer of metal. Like here at this A pillar, there's another layer of metal. And now I said about an air tool. Again, this is a right angle cutoff tool I need in this tight quarter. Now I don't have, they don't even make an electric one. It would sort of defeat the electric version of this, because the electric motor would make it too big and clumsy. But this isn't real fast cutting, but around this, again, all these tight curves, I'm going to use it, and it'll do the job. Yeah, I've only recently bought this little 90-degree air cutoff tool about 2 years ago, because they were something that was like well over $100, and I went on the Amazon and found one that was around $50. If I can find it, I'll put a link, or probably Harbor Freight has them. Okay, now we're back to the B-pillar, and we're back to the electric cutoff tool, which, as you hear, it makes a lot more noise, but it's a lot faster than that Air 90-degree tool. But it has its limitations in tight areas. Okay, we got the outside edge cut, which goes real quick, but now we're back down to the air cutoff tool with this 90 degree and right around these corners. And same deal, you only want to cut through the first layer of metal. If you go in a little deep and you gouge it a little bit, the next layer, it's not the end of the world, but try only to cut through the first. And here we go, the slow process with this. One other disadvantage, now I have an 80-gallon air compressor, 5 horsepower, but if you have a little air compressor, it probably, I'm sure, wouldn't handle this air cutoff tool, because it takes a good bit of CFMs to run it there. Of course, you could probably run it in little jaunts. For years, I had only a little 20-gallon air compressor, and that's what I do, like any cutoff tools or sanders, DA sanders. You'd work a little bit and then you'd have to stop and let the compressor build up. But yeah, the 80-gallon air compressor, those days ended. It was a good investment. Okay, we're about through on this. Yeah, this air cutoff tool probably cut a little bit slicker if I had a thinner blade. I always used the 16th inch thick ones, which they last a while, but the thicker cut, they don't cut as fast, but then again, the blade lasts longer. And there we're through that. Now back around this corner on it, the back corner, and here we go again with the 90-degree air cutoff tool. And you can hear even the 80-gallon compressor, it's even putting the drag on the tool, using as much as I am here at one time. But yeah, besides this 90-degree tool around these corners on these door pillars, I don't really, the only other thing I could think that would probably cut it there, that you could get around all the tight corners, and yeah, talk about slow, would be a Dremel tool. But yeah, again, this is still faster than cutting with the Dremel tool. And now we're back here to the C-pillar on cutting. Now, at least here we can start with the electric tool for a big part of this. Only have to use the air run a little bit on this, especially around this outside part, because again, it's pretty much you're cutting body filter, nothing else. Oh, and what else would do this cutting, but that's an expensive tool, is a plasma cutter. But that's, again, a whole another price range over that 90-degree cutoff tools. And if you don't have one, again, that's getting into a couple $100 machine. And we're down to our 90-degree cutoff tool again, here to finish up here. One thing that's nice on this 90-degree cutoff tool, you can turn it around either way. Sometimes it helps you out on clearance. Again, it gets into some pretty tight places. When I bought this, actually what I had in my mind wasn't so much body work, but was exhaust work, cutting up around rusty exhaust off cars, up around tailpipes, mufflers, and that. But it's come in handy for other. Again, yeah, when you can use another style cutoff tool or an angle grinder or something to cut this faster, it's the way to go. But again, when you room clearance is a problem, it'll get there where a lot of the other stuff won't fit. Now we'll get to cut body filter, a big part of it, and here we're going to use our electric one. It probably would be easier at this point if I would have pulled the tire and wheel off the car, but I don't at this time. In future videos it must come off, but for right now I'm just working around it. But that's up to you if you'd want to take the time and pull it off right now. It would help. And we just got to cut back around this corner a little bit. Like I say, since it is so rusty, and you can see the body filter dust cutting. Alrighty, that takes care of that much. Now here's just a general overview of what we just accomplished. There's around the front A-pillar. And look around. Like I say, make sure we got it the whole way through. And we'll go here and take a look on back here at the B-pillar. Same deal. It looks like it's through. If it's just catching a little bit, we'll overcome that at a future time. And so far, looking like it should. It looks like we're through. And just give one here look here back at the C-pillar on the car. And that, again, even if it wasn't cut through, as much filler as in that, it'd probably just break off anyhow. But I do believe it's all right. And we can proceed here shortly. And there's the last little place I took the cut. Yeah, ready. Time to quit looking at this. And now it's time to start drilling spot welds. And we're going to start with drilling an 1/8 inch hole. And of course the drill has to be catching. But that's the first step in this. We're going to go drill all of them. And there is quite a bit. Yeah, I've decided to start at the front of the car and work back. And the drill bit came through the first one. We're going to drill the second one. But yeah, you can do it any order you want, but I just figured working from the front of the car to the rear is the most logical step on this. And here we're up to number 3. Yeah, they're not a big investment, especially like at Harbor Freight there. But be sure you got a couple 1/8 inch bits for this job, because there's a good chance you'll break some and they'll dull out, because there's a lot of them to drill till we're done. And again, like I say, they're not expensive 1/8 inch drill bits. I'll put a link in the description. I got a 10 pack at Harbor Freight, and they could last a good while. And like I say, you can just move on to another bit if one does snap. Yeah, in addition, these aren't the easiest to drill, because you're actually drilling through 3 layers of metal. The outer rocker panel. There's an inner brace, which we'll be seeing here in a little while, which is another layer, and then the inside where you're seeing it come through the car. So that, again, there's 3 layers of metal you're going through to get where you need to be. These are a well-made car, and you want to watch the wires, don't drill a hole in them. And a little bit here, I probably should get smart and move them, but right now I'm stubborn. I'm going to let them stay right where they're at. Yeah, actually it takes to get ready for this, with pulling the seats and the carpet and everything out. More or less plan on a day just to pull the stuff out of the car, all in that center console. And there's it came through again, and we hit the wire, the outside layer again. And here we're coming through another one. We're getting there slowly but surely. Now we're about halfway back to driver's door opening right now. I guess we drilled about 7 of them, 8 of them. I don't know. It's been a good many so far. Okay, we're going to keep on drilling. That didn't quite come through. Drill cuts. But it's, again, you'll get used to that doing it. And you can see the metal shavings flying. I will admit, I do like the cordless drills, but I hate all cordless drills that keyless chuck. A keyed chuck, you can tighten it up, and now I am going to finally move the wires. I've been pushing my luck, no harm done yet, but they just pull up clips in the floor, and there they're pushed out of the way. And it beats having to fix the wire, or worse yet, hitting one and not realizing you did mess it up and having a short later on down the road. One of the most difficult things on these spot welds, and maybe this video will help you out, because I'm sure the car's been put together with the robot, they're all fairly at the same place, is just finding them. But hopefully this video, if you can't find one, you can watch it there and see roughly where they are located. And again, this day and age, they probably are all at the same place. It's set up like in a jig, and the robot's spot welds. And I know probably once upon a time, real people did it, and there could be a variation where they got drilled, but not till this time and age, I'm sure of. Oh, I actually meant to say where they got welded, not drilled. Yeah, we got a find where they welded them at the factory to drill them, but they weren't drilling them at the factory. Never mind me. Okay, here we're still proceeding along. Oh yeah, and by the way, the drill I'm using, back down to Harbor Freight, that come from Harbor Freight. It was their Warrior brand of drill, and I've had it now for about a year, and it's nice as long as you don't need a 1/2 inch drill. It's just a 3/8 drill, which I like around this car body work, drilling these spot welds, and that way you don't need no 1/2 inch drill, because the largest bit you're going to be putting in here in a little while will be using that spot weld bit, and it fits just fine. And we're about back to front door opening, but not quite. It looks this one plus it looks like about 3 more to go. Yeah, as usual in the description, I'll put a link for this drill, and I try to put a link on when I do a video on the tools I use a lot of. If it's something like I say that's still available, I'll put a link to it, such as this drill, and like I say, we'll do that. What I look at, I'm not getting paid by Harbor Freight or anyone on it there, but I'm assuming you're like myself, you're fixing a car like this, you don't have a lot of money, so you can use a good deal on tools, and if you don't have something. Okay, now we have finally progressed. We're starting around the back door opening. Okay, and we got the first one drilled at the back door opening. Now we're on number 2. And at least the back door opening is not as wide. There's not as many spot welds. And again, after we drill the 1/8 inch hole, we're not done yet with them. We get to go back through and drill again, except with the spot weld cutter next time. But one step at a time. Let's finish drilling the 1/8 inch pilot holes first. Yeah, it is time consuming drilling these 1/8 inch holes, but it does help on when you actually drill the spot welds. You can be bullheaded and try doing it without it, and you'll usually end up breaking your spot weld bit, which costs a lot more than these 1/8 inch drill bits. And by the way, I haven't broke one yet on this today. So far, although I do think my bit's getting sort of dull here at the moment, I might have to switch for that reason. That's, I think, one of the most irritating things drilling, though, is that catch from just as it's ready to come out. There's no getting around it, but it happens. But, yeah, well, here we go again. Another hole. We're about halfway on the rear door opening. Furthermore, it is nice that those new rocker panels do come up to right here where this does fit in. Again, it's a lot of work drilling these holes, but on the other hand, putting it back in and just do like plug welds in place of the factory spot welds and save some work there instead of like trying to weld a whole seam. And if you don't know what I mean by a plug weld, wait till upcoming videos. You'll get to see plenty of it being done. Or like I say, if you check out my other videos, I did a course report on a GMC Safari. I did lots of plug welds in those videos. You can go back and check. But again, upcoming videos, you'll be seeing it being done on lots of times. And all sorts of other welding techniques in upcoming videos. Like I said, this video is dedicated to just getting rid of the rust mess there to proceed to the next step of fabricating and starting to put metal back into this old car instead of rust. One thing, if you've never really got into body work before, over mechanical work on a car, it takes a lot more time. In a way, I enjoy it more, but it does. You could change the motor quicker in a car than what you could doing like this rocker panel, but it's still, I enjoy doing it. It's more relaxing in a way, and you don't get greasy. You get dirty, but you get like a dusty, gritty dirty, and there's all the holes drilled out of it.
11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
And there I counted 15 at the rear door opening, but lo and behold I forgot one, so now we can take that total up to 16 instead of 15. Alrighty, I think this is the last one now at the rear. Now let's go to the front and let's count what we do have. Now I'm going to get the camera here turned and we'll start counting.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
Well, I'm counting 20 up front and 16 in the rear, so that's 36. And here's our spot weld cutter that we're going to be using next. Another Harbor Freight tool. It's a good spot weld cutter, about half the price or less than half the price that most places want for them. I'll be sure to put a link in the description. And get rid of a 1/8 inch bit, and we'll just put this in. And if you've never used a spot weld cutter before, now I'll show you here shortly. It essentially is just a miniature hole saw. And you here once I tighten it in, I'll try to focus in on the camera and show you. And there you can see what I'm saying. It's got little teeth, and again, it's what it is. And I'm going to spray some cutting oil on it. It helps to make it cut better. Again, bought it at Harbor Freight, although CRC thread cutter can be bought lots of places. And we'll start drilling. Yeah, it actually cuts more efficiently if you listen there. If you, with the variable speed drill, if you just sort of keep the RPMs down on it and just let it go at a nice gradual pace, it does better, and your spot weld cutter will last longer. And you can also see the purpose of the pilot 1/8 inch hole. The middle of it sticks through, and that guides where you cut the spot weld. Okay, I'm going to say I'm far enough through that, but you don't want to really go the whole way through if you can help it, because you want to save the backing metal, so when we put the rocker panel in, you have something to weld to. I mean, if you mess up once in a while and accidentally go through both layers, it will happen, but try not to. Alrighty, I'm going to say there's another one done. We'll move on here. And again, with this little drill here is great there, because you don't really want a powerful drill. And again, the variable speed helps, although it is a hair trigger on this. I'm getting feel of it here going into this more, but that first one I kept trying to keep the RPMs down, and I kept pulling back too far on the trigger, and they're close up there, what you're sort of looking for through the first layer. And again, what you're doing, you're cutting a hole around the spot weld. And now we got a few loose. We're going to take a chisel and hammer here and see if we can start prying it apart and see some signs of movement. Well, it's starting to want to break free, but unfortunately here I didn't quite cut through the A-pillar, so here we're back down to our cutoff tool, the angle cutoff tool, and we're going to just snip a little bit more out of the way. And now after doing this, let's see if it's ready to come. I'm just using the really junky screwdriver, and yep, you can see it's moving. It's starting to free up, and especially we've only cut like 3 of these spot welds so far, and we'll just keep going. And throughout, that's usually what I do. I do like 3 or 4, stop and pry it apart, make sure you're getting it, you're not missing any spot welds. Again, they can be hard to see, and just keep working at that pace. But actually on the top on this car, they're not too bad to see. They actually are sort of pronounced, but at times they're not as easy to pick up, and especially where you're dealing with a rusty area where you're trying to drill, the rust sort of hides them. But yeah, this isn't too bad right around this opening of this door at all. Alrighty, looks like we got another one here about taken care of, and then we'll keep on moving along here, and we'll go back to our chisel friend and see. And I'm using a fairly fine chisel on this, so yeah, again, I want to try to salvage the backing metal as much as I can, so the new rocker panel can be welded in, and you won't have to replace up here at the top where it's getting welded to. What else works good on this is a little fine pry bar, and I have one, but I can't seem to find it today, so, well, we'll deal without it. It's one of them, it's probably here in the garage. It probably fell down off the wall where I had it hanging, and it's laying on the floor somewhere or underneath something. I'm not saying it, but yeah, okay, here we're going to do some more drilling with the hole saw. Oh, actually meant to say spot weld cutter, not hole saw, but no, anyhow, it is, as I mentioned earlier, a miniature version of such. And we just freshly lubricated it up with some cutting oil and going about it for another one. And one thing about those on these spot weld cutters, these are two-sided, these cutting bits. You can turn them around and use the other side if it gets dull, providing you don't break that center out. That's why the 1/8" pilot hole is so important, because yeah, what's doing the actual cutting, it is two-sided. Nevertheless, though, if you break the center point out of it, you're just out of luck the whole way around. That is until you buy another spot weld cutter. I do usually keep an extra one on hand. They're not, I'll put a link in the description. As I said earlier, they're not that much at Harbor Freight. They're well under $10. And there we're doing the chisel and the hammer again, and more of it's starting to separate, making some headway on this. Okay, we'll reposition the camera here, give you a little different point of view of drilling them. And here we go again. And we're probably, well, a little over halfway back to the front door opening now. Actually, you can look right across the door. I mean, over to the passenger door. I didn't take the passenger door and of the car. That one needs repaired also, but that one you're on your own. I'm going to do the video on this one side, and it's virtually the same. But I figured due to the space there, I have all the seats and that out of this car in the garage. I'm going to let the passenger doors on till I get to that side and put the driver ones back on first. Ready to take a little time out from drilling here, and we'll zoom in and let you see what you are. Again, you can see it's through the first layer, but not going the whole way through, which that's what they're supposed to look like if you're doing it. Now we're going to take and separate some more here with the chisel, and you can see how they're just popping apart if you get that first layer cut through with it there, the spot weld cutter. And on that, I don't know why they do that at times, but you see how close those two spot welds were together. But I've run into that on all brands of cars, GM, Ford, Chrysler, imports. And then other ones are spaced out evenly. I really don't know what the deal is on it. And now we're back to drilling. Oh, and by the way, of places, and this is one, I'm doing to show all the holes being, the spot welds being cut. I'm doing time-lapse video, but there is places, no, the drill's really not turning this fast, but I'm trying to save some time on the video. It's going to be a couple part series and plenty long as it is. And there we're knocking some more apart with the chisel and the hammer. Or is it the hammer and the chisel? Which come first, the cart or the horse? The old joke. I know. Stick with the body work and quit trying to be a comedian. Okay, now we're back with another spot weld being cut. Yeah, till you're done with this, it's tiring, boring, but it isn't really hard as long as, like I say, you got a sharp 1/8" bit and a spot weld cutter, but it does get monotonous. Just keep repeating and eventually you'll get done. We are getting about 3/4 of the way back to driver's door opening, which I think, if I remember from earlier, there was 20, and I think there were 16 in the rear. Oh, don't hold me to that. We might have missed one somewhere along the line, but it's a rough estimation of such. That's one reason I like to stop every so often, like right now, and get the chisel and the hammer, break the monotony of the constant drilling, and it does make you feel you're making progress too when you're doing this. And again, instead of going ahead and drilling them all at once and realizing that you have a whole bunch you didn't drill through far enough, well, this way you know right away. I've been going roughly about 3 of them and then going back through with the chisel and the hammer. But now on that subject, going to grab the drill with the spot weld cutter and go back to that again, because the one I did drill wasn't quite through far enough as I was talking, but I realized it right away. And we're going to take the hammer and the chisel and see if it breaks apart now. And again, that working a little bit at a time, and it still seems like it doesn't really want to come. Yeah, a bigger chisel or a bigger hammer might make it go quicker, but I'm again trying not to really damage that back part of the metal because it's going to be reused. I mean, it's going to get scuffed up some. You can bend it back into place to some degree if you don't mangle it too awful bad.
There we go.
Yeah, it's starting to move a little bit, but it still isn't really totally breaking free. So here we go again, and now back to the spot weld cutter and some more drilling, to be followed up with the hammer and the chisel again. And maybe one day we'll get it here all apart. Who knows? It seems like it was going pretty good, but now this is sort of an area that's really wanting to fight. However, complaining about it's not going to get anything fixed. Now we'll get back around here and we better do some more spot weld cutting. And I think that'll get the rest of the way we need to go here on the driver's door opening, if all goes well. Anyway, while I drill, just enjoy looking at the sights. The rust, I mean, look at that. Yeah, this is one of them. You'll see more as time goes along. And we're, I think, to the next to the last one now on the driver's door opening. We're just about there. Yeah, I put rocker panels in a good bit of my own cars, but I usually just take and fabricate the panels to save money. And on that, there's video on YouTube, a couple of parts there. I fixed the core support on a GMC Safari. It was all rusty, and earlier, a couple of years before that, I had fixed the rocker panels on that, and they had rusted back out, and I don't know, I realized how bad it was. I just sold the van about a month ago. I didn't feel like doing the rocker panels twice. Once was bad enough along with that core support. I probably should have just skipped on fixing the core support. I sort of was undecided which direction I was going, but I made my mind up. Okay, now we're about got that taken care of. It still wanted to stick right there at the corner a little bit, but not because of a spot weld, because I didn't cut quite far enough with the cutter tool. It's just a little thread of metal there still hanging up, but this hopefully will take care of it. And see if their chisel, well, yeah, I didn't even need the hammer part of it, just the chisel. Okay, that's broke free, and we're going to take here and just pry it back before. But yeah, it's definitely freed up, and still right there at that corner was a little metal, but I think it broke. Now we're around to the back door opening, first one. The first one, and 15 to go, or maybe it's 16. Again, I'm not sure on the count anymore. But that's, like I say, we'll go second one now back on the rear door opening. Yeah, as usual, I try to show everything that you know what you're doing. And as far as like a project like this, to make the decision if your car's worth the time and effort to go through all this work or not, so there's no hidden surprises. That's up to your decision on what you think your car's worth and the tools and that you have. But yeah, if you know all the facts, you can make an educated decision. Now we got the hammer and chisel, and it's starting to pry apart some. That's the one good news on this car. The floor looks good in it. Now, on the other hand, my mother has a Taurus, and the rocker panels are good, but her back floor, I put a big patch in about 2 or 3 years ago, but that happened on that. One back window was left open and it rained real hard, and I don't think it dried out right that one summer and ended up rusting, but yeah, the floor, on the other hand, looks fine on this. However, I'm not even halfway into this. I'll tell you the truth, that floor patch, because it was the back floor on the passenger side, probably about a 1 foot wide by about a 2 foot wide piece of metal, was a lot easier to do than this and a lot less work, a lot less stuff to tear apart. You could let the doors and that on the car at least on it. So on the other hand, it was the better trade-off. And then on the other hand, you could have one that the rocker panels and the floor's rusted. And then probably at that point, if you had both, it probably is time to call it a day on it. And we got our chisel and hammer and starting to work it apart some. Yes, I'm starting to see a good bit of movement, and we'll do some more drilling, and we should start to see some more movement. But yes, it's looking promising here already. Yeah, there we just put some more cutting oil on the spot weld cutter. I'll admit I've been in a hurry here. Haven't been putting it on every one. It probably would help, but yet I feel I'm saving time by not doing it. But here we're drilling some more, and we'll get them done, and we'll go grab our chisel here real shortly. Which, here it is. I think it's time to try pounding some more of this apart again. And as you hear, it's not going as planned, and it's not coming apart real well. Seems like we're sort of at a stop here again on this. So we'll do this a little bit more with the hammer and chisel, but eventually I'm going to have to go back to the spot weld cutter. But stubbornness is a wonderful thing. There I did actually, but that is the part that's going to be disposed. I did sort of rip a gouge out of that outer layer of that rocker panel, and there comes the spot weld cutter. Yeah, the big thing, I'm getting in a hurry. I'm not drilling through them far enough like earlier. But now, we got through them now far enough. Here, we made lots of headway compared to the stuff there seemed to be in. Yeah, we're down to just a few more here up around the C-pillar on the car. And another factor, I'm certain, it's not doing bad, but the spot weld cutter's definitely not as sharp as when I started this. I would take and spin it around to the other side, but I have another side on this car to do, so we'll see if we can get through a few more of these with this spot weld cutter without switching it around. And that's something those cutters will at times break. The cutter will. It don't happen a lot, but when you least expect it, they'll catch and they'll snap. And back to the chisel. We'll see what happens now. Now I'm liking what I'm seeing. It's about there, just a little bit right up here at the top edge sticking, and yes indeedy, the cover's rusted there. We got the back pulled out. Get our gloves on, and we're just going to start eliminating metal here. Yeah, I knew it was rusty, but I was sort of surprised when I pulled that just with my hand at the top. It came about off there. I say we'll get rid of this so it's not hanging in the way and end up getting cut on it, and cut some more here with our 3-inch electric cutoff tool. Again, maybe I mentioned it earlier, another Harbor Freight tool, but I'll put a link in the description for that. Those I do know they still have, and there's a large portion of it going, and more rust back behind it. And there's that back at that C post there, and look at that, all sorts of goodies. Nevertheless, even though it broke really fairly free. It's being stubborn. That last little bit of rusted steel, it seems like it wants to stay with the car, and we'll just let that little bit hang there for posterity for later on in the project. We're going to go get the front part here removed, starting with the the electric cut-off tool. What I'm doing here, the front's not rusted totally away like the back part of the rocker panel, and I'm cutting well, you see the holes across the top there, the ones that are like spaced about 6 inches apart, and then it bends down and then bends again, and right behind that second bend I'm cutting it because I'm back underneath where it bends up in the rocker panel. It is actually, what you'll see, that'll be actually in the next video, but there's more spot welds that are actually holding yet. So I'm still getting rid of a large portion of the rocker panel by cutting this like this, and it'll make it easier to drill the spot welds that are straight up in the air. And now we're in the extremely rusty area again where there is nothing holding. We're just about there. Since this car's unibody, and these are well built and considered a safe car, what actually exists underneath this rocker panel is sort of a whole other inner rocker panel with braces and that. It's very intense, that makes the car strong. And now we're going to take here and slice this at the front corner and break it free. And again, they're still letting the piece there to weld the new rocker panel too. And again, through upcoming videos, you'll get to see more work on that inner rocker panel and such. I do it pretty much the right way, but again, that's going to be a couple videos down the road. Right now, we're going to again finish getting the old rust out of the way. And there we see where we had cut, and we got a few spot welds here at this front A-pillar to drill out. Yeah, there's certainly no doubt that they made up for the unibody construction on this car in other means, which I don't know, probably till all the extra bracing and that, how much really lighter the car is. I'll admit, I think they're a well-built car. And there's a few more spot welds down here yet to get before this will break free. And this actually back behind here is pretty thick metal you're drilling into, which slows down the process. Okay, there we got our pilot holes drilled. Now, I still actually forgot one. Never mind. There's 4 or 5 of them, at least in this area, this small part of this A-pillar. On the other hand, once we get the pilot holes there, we can actually drill the spot welds themselves. I do believe we got them all, and there comes the spot weld cutter on the job. So now so far going with the 36 or maybe 37 on those upper rocker panel lip spot welds, and adding this other 5.2, we're like 41 or 42. So that's a good many, and there will be more yet to come, but that again will be in the upcoming video, which I'll let you with a little snippet here at the end of this one, some scenes of the upcoming there. Alrighty, it looks like we got those 5 drilled, hopefully far enough. We're going to see what happens here. Here comes her handy gloves again, and there's actually like a adhesive the factory used there on that B-pillar that wants to stick a little bit, but it's coming, and now we're pulling back. And aha, look at that. We must have got those drilled far enough at the front, and there it is off. Okay, and that's going to conclude this round of the video. Right here coming up is going to be the next part of it. There are a few scenes of it. Thank you for watching.